Most people believe they're doing okay financially until retirement arrives and reality hits harder than expected. They worked for decades. They earned regularly. Some even saved. Yet millions reach retirement age feeling anxious, restricted, and financially exposed. Not because they were careless, but because they followed advice that sounded sensible and missed what actually matters. In this video, we'll calmly walk through why most people retire broke and, more importantly, how to avoid it and without panic, pressure, or risky moves. This is about long-term stability, smart decisions, and peace of mind. Let's begin with something that may surprise you. Most people do not retire broke because they were careless. And they certainly don't retire broke because they lacked intelligence. In fact, many people who struggle financially in retirement worked hard for decades. They raised families, they paid mortgages, they showed up every day. So what went wrong? The truth is, retirement problems rarely come from one dramatic mistake. They come from small, ordinary financial decisions repeated consistently over 30 or 40 years, and those small decisions compound quietly. For example, as income increases, lifestyle often increases with it. A slightly nicer car, a slightly bigger home, more dining out, more subscriptions, more comfort. None of these are irresponsible on their own, but when spending rises at the same pace as income, savings often stay flat. This is what economists call lifestyle inflation. It feels normal, it feels deserved, it feels harmless, but over time it prevents wealth from compounding. And compounding is not dramatic, it is slow, it is quiet, it requires patience. Another common issue is waiting too long to invest consistently. Many people assume there will be more time later, more time to save, more time to catch up, more time to get serious. But time is the one resource that cannot be recovered. A person who invests modestly at 35 often ends up with more than someone who invests aggressively at 50. Not because they were smarter, but because compounding had more years to work. There is also a deep reliance many people place on pensions or government support. And while these systems can help, they were never designed to fully replace income, especially with rising life expectancy. People are living longer. Retirement is no longer 10 years. For many, it's 20 or even 30 years. That requires planning beyond basic support systems. Let me give you a simple example. Imagine two people earning similar incomes. The first gradually increases savings each time their salary rises, even by just 1 or 2%. The second maintains the same savings rate for decades, assuming things will work out. By the time retirement arrives, the gap between them can be substantial, not because of luck, not because of intelligence, but because of consistent, small decisions. And here is the reassuring part. If the problem was built slowly, the solution can also be built slowly. There is no need for panic, no need for drastic measures, but there is a need for awareness. Retirement success is rarely about dramatic financial genius. It is about steady, intentional habits over time. And the earlier those habits begin, or are corrected, the more powerful they become. Now, once we understand that retirement problems are built slowly, a deeper question begins to surface. Why do so many intelligent, responsible adults still underestimate what retirement truly requires? It often comes down to a quiet assumption, an assumption that retirement is simply an extension of working life, just without the job. But retirement is not just life without work. It is a completely different financial phase. Income changes, expenses shift, healthcare costs may increase, and the ability to recover from mistakes becomes smaller. During your working years, time is on your side. If something goes wrong, you can earn more, you can adjust, you can rebuild. In retirement, flexibility decreases. And this is where many people miscalculate. They assume their current lifestyle will cost the same. They assume inflation will remain manageable. They assume pensions or investments will stretch further than they realistically will. Not because they are careless, but because the human mind naturally discounts future risk. We tend to believe tomorrow will somehow sort itself out. And that belief over decades quietly shapes financial behavior. So in this next part, let's look at the retirement illusion more closely and understand why time, income, and expenses behave very differently once work stops. Retirement is often imagined as freedom. More time, less stress, the ability to finally slow down. And in many ways, that vision is correct. But financially, retirement is not simply life, but calmer. It is a completely different economic phase of life. During your working years, your income is active. You exchange time, skills, and experience for money. If you need more income, you can work more hours, negotiate, change roles, or develop new skills. There is elasticity. There is room to adjust. In retirement, income becomes largely fixed. Instead of earning, you are drawing down. Instead of building, you are preserving. And this shift changes everything. Let's consider something simple. If you are 45 and experience a financial setback, you may still have 15 or 20 working years to recover. If you are 68 and experience the same setback, recovery becomes more difficult. Not impossible, but more limited. Time, which once helped you, now becomes more precious. This is one of the biggest retirement illusions, the assumption that financial flexibility remains the same. It does not. There is also the issue of longevity. Decades ago, retirement might have lasted 10 to 15 years. Today, many people spend 20 to 30 years in retirement. That is nearly a second adulthood, and it must be funded. Now let's add inflation into the picture. Even at a modest rate, inflation quietly reduces purchasing power over time. An expense that costs £1,000 or $1,000 today will likely cost significantly more 15 years from now. Healthcare costs, in particular, tend to rise faster than general inflation. Again, this is not meant to alarm you. It is simply meant to be acknowledged. Because ignoring inflation is one of the reasons retirement plans fall short. Another common miscalculation is underestimating lifestyle expenses. Many people assume their costs will dramatically drop in retirement, and while some expenses may decrease, commuting, work clothing, payroll taxes, others often increase. Travel, leisure, supporting adult children, home maintenance, medical needs. Retirement is not necessarily cheaper, it is different. And difference requires planning. Let's imagine a simple example. Two individuals retire at 65 with similar savings. One plans conservatively, assuming modest returns and rising expenses. The other assumes steady growth and minimal unexpected costs. 10 years later, their outcomes may look very different, even though they started in the same position. The difference is not intelligence, it is assumptions. Retirement planning is not about predicting the future perfectly. It is about preparing for uncertainty responsibly. And perhaps the most important shift to understand is psychological. During your working life, money is something you accumulate. In retirement, money becomes something you must manage carefully. Spending can feel heavier. Decisions feel more permanent. This emotional shift can cause either overspending because I deserve it now, or underspending because what if I run out? Both extremes come from the same place, uncertainty, and clarity reduces uncertainty. The more realistic your expectations about income, time, and expenses, the more stable and peaceful retirement becomes. The goal is not to predict every scenario. It is to create a margin of safety. Because in retirement, margin matters more than momentum. Momentum builds wealth. Margin protects it. And understanding this distinction is one of the most powerful financial realizations you can have after 40. Now that we understand how retirement changes the financial landscape, let's look at the patterns that quietly lead many people off course. Not dramatic mistakes, not reckless decisions, but subtle habits that seem reasonable at the time. The first pattern is postponement. Many adults fully intend to get serious about retirement planning. But life is busy. There are children to raise, careers to build, mortgages to manage, unexpected expenses that demand attention. So retirement planning becomes something that starts next year, and then next year becomes 5 years, and 5 years quietly becomes 15. Time passes faster than we expect. And because there is no immediate consequence, postponement feels harmless. But retirement planning is uniquely dependent on time. Every year delayed reduces the power of compounding, and compounding is most powerful in its early years. The second pattern is underestimating required savings. Many people choose a comfortable number in their mind, a round figure that sounds sufficient. But they haven't calculated how long retirement may last. They haven't adjusted for inflation. They haven't considered healthcare, long-term care, or supporting family members later in life, so the number feels reassuring. But it may not be realistic. The third pattern is inconsistent investing. Some people invest only when markets feel stable. Others stop investing during downturns out of fear, and some move entirely to cash after experiencing volatility. These reactions are human, but long-term investing rewards consistency, not emotional timing. Missing just a handful of strong market recovery periods can significantly affect long-term outcomes. And because markets recover unevenly, emotional decisions often do more harm than the downturn itself. Another quiet pattern is lifestyle anchoring. As income rises through midlife, spending patterns become anchored to that higher standard. The home becomes larger, the car becomes newer, vacations become more frequent. Again, none of this is irresponsible. But if savings do not rise proportionally, retirement becomes dependent on maintaining that income level, and when the income stops, adjustment becomes difficult. Finally, there is overconfidence in external systems. Some rely heavily on property values continuing to rise. Others assume pensions or government benefits will cover most needs. And while these can be valuable components of a plan, relying on any single pillar creates vulnerability. Strong retirement planning rests on multiple supports, not one. Now here is the important part. None of these patterns mean failure. They simply mean adjustment is needed. The earlier the awareness comes, the easier the correction becomes. And even for those already in their 50s or early 60s, clarity can still meaningfully improve outcomes. Because retirement security is not determined by perfection, it is determined by direction. Small corrections made consistently still compound. And unlike youth, experience gives you something powerful: perspective. You understand risk better. You understand priorities more clearly. And that wisdom can now be applied deliberately. The goal is not to regret past decisions. It is to refine future ones. The encouraging news is this: retirement outcomes are not determined overnight, and they are not ruined overnight either. They are shaped gradually, which means they can also be improved gradually. Let's focus on what can be done calmly and realistically. The first step is awareness, not anxiety, not fear. Awareness. Take time to understand where you currently stand. How much have you saved? How much do you invest consistently? What does your monthly spending truly look like? Many people are surprised by their own numbers. Clarity removes guesswork, and guesswork is often where financial stress begins. The second step is increasing your savings rate, even slightly. You do not need to double it overnight. An additional 1 or 2% of income directed toward long-term investments can make a measurable difference over time. Small adjustments applied consistently matter more than dramatic short-term efforts. The third step is consistency in investing. Markets will rise and fall. Headlines will change. But retirement planning rewards discipline over reaction. Rather than trying to predict every market movement, focus on steady contributions and appropriate diversification. The goal is not perfection, it is participation. Another powerful step is planning for longevity. Instead of asking, "How long do I expect to live?" ask, "What if I live longer than expected?" Planning conservatively does not mean expecting the worst. It means allowing margin for uncertainty. Margin creates peace of mind. Next, reduce high-interest debt where possible. Carrying expensive debt into retirement can strain fixed income later. Even gradual debt reduction now increases flexibility in the future. Flexibility is one of the most valuable financial assets in retirement. It allows you to respond without panic. It allows you to adapt without distress. Another important consideration is diversification of income sources. Instead of relying on a single pillar, whether that is a pension, property, or investments, consider how multiple streams can support one another. This does not require complexity. It simply requires balance. And finally, review your plan periodically. Life changes, health changes, family circumstances change. Retirement planning is not a one-time decision. It is an ongoing adjustment. Even a simple annual review can prevent small issues from becoming large ones. Now, if you are in your 40s or early 50s, this is an especially powerful time. You still have time for compounding to work. If you are in your late 50s or early 60s, adjustments still matter. Contribution levels, spending habits, and risk exposure can still be refined. The key is not speed, it is steadiness. Financial security is not built through urgency, it is built through intention. And intention, applied consistently, is remarkably effective over time. Before we finish, it's important to step back and take a broader view. Retirement is often discussed in extremes. Either it is portrayed as effortless freedom or as financial catastrophe waiting to happen. The truth is usually somewhere in between. Most people do not retire broke because they failed. They retire financially strained because no one clearly explained how gradual decisions shape long-term outcomes. And once you understand that, the conversation changes. Because gradual decisions can also work in your favor. There is something deeply empowering about recognizing that retirement security is not built on luck. It is built on awareness, consistency, and thoughtful adjustment. You do not need to outsmart the markets. You do not need to predict global events. You do not need to make perfect financial choices. You simply need a clear direction and the willingness to stay with it. For many adults over 40, there is still meaningful time to improve outcomes. For those already closer to retirement, there is still room to create stability and margin. And margin, more than anything, creates peace. Peace does not come from having unlimited money. It comes from knowing you have prepared thoughtfully, from knowing you have reduced unnecessary risk, from knowing your lifestyle is aligned with your resources. Financial confidence in retirement is less about wealth and more about control. Control over spending, control over expectations, control over emotional reactions to uncertainty. And that kind of control is built slowly, one adjustment at a time, one disciplined habit at a time, one informed decision at a time. If there is one message to carry forward, it is this: retirement is not a single event. It is a phase of life that can be shaped intentionally, even now, especially now. Small, steady improvements made today can quietly transform the decades ahead. And that is not a dramatic promise. It is simply how compounding in both money and habits has always worked. If this conversation has been helpful, take a moment to reflect on one small adjustment you can make this month. Not a dramatic change, just one thoughtful step forward. Retirement security is built gradually, and clarity is often the first investment. If you value calm, practical discussions like this, focused on long-term stability rather than hype, consider subscribing. This channel is designed to offer steady perspective, especially for those navigating their 40s, 50s, and beyond. And if you know someone who might benefit from a more grounded approach to retirement planning, feel free to share this with them. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to this channel. Thank you for spending your time here. And remember, financial confidence is not about perfection. It is about direction. I'll see you in the next conversation.